On this episode of Exactly How, we're going to show you how to find the perfect land to develop, fantastic rules of thumb to figure out if a deal is a deal, and exactly how you can build cash flow through real estate on this episode of Exactly How.
You're listening to the Exactly How podcast, where you'll hear the underground, closely guarded wealth building secrets of successful people around the globe. Discover exactly how to improve your mental, physical, and financial health. Feel better, make more money, live, give, and prosper in today's exciting, fast-paced world filled with opportunity for those who know exactly how.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Connected Investors podcast, Exactly How. During this episode, you'll discover exactly how to be successful with small-scale real estate development. For those of you who are new, my name is Ross Hamilton, today's host and CEO of ConnectedInvestors.com and PrivateLenders.com. Today, we have the privilege to learn from a guy who has helped tens of thousands of real estate investors just like you become very successful. He's also a close personal friend of mine and someone I look up to for a lot of the type of information that we're going to cover here today. Prior to his career as a successful real estate developer and also software developer, he was a grocery store stock boy. He, did all sorts of stuff in kind of financial analysis. He's been through a lot of different financial type jobs, but that all changed when he was laid off from his corporate job in 2008, and that was the best thing that ever happened to him. I would describe our guest as very consistent in his efforts, his improvement, and his learning. His name is Daniil, and today he's going to explain exactly how to be successful with small-scale real estate development. Daniil, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope I can live up to all of that, that lofty intro.
Yeah, well, it's all true, man. And it's been great watching you do small scale real estate development. Daniil and I are in a few different masterminds together. We get on the phone and just kind of catch up with each other from time to time. And every time I talk to him, he's building something new out, or he has some really interesting Facebook posts where he's showing all of this great development that he's doing, and he's running a successful real estate education and software company. So I think you're going to be able to provide a lot of value here, and I'm really excited for that. But before we dive into small scale real estate development, you contribute a lot of your success just to your daily, persistence and effort, showing up for work every day and just pushing hard. Why do you think that's played such a big role in your success?
I don't know. I just do the same thing. Sometimes we all have friends where you don't talk to them for a few months or maybe 6 months or a year. And every time you talk to them, they're doing something different. Right. And it's always exciting. You're like, hey man, I'm moving the camera so that,
There you go.
Let's just start advertising right now. We all have those friends. You talk to them and every time they're doing something new and it's exciting, but it's always something different. And they're always chasing the next shiny object, right? And they never get anywhere. So me, I'm boring. Like I'm doing the same thing I was doing 8 years ago. I'm growing our software company and trying to improve our product, and I'm building real estate, right? I'm doing real estate deals now. I'm doing deals larger in scale, but I'm doing the same thing. I'm not chasing crypto or Amazon fulfillment, drop shipping, some new opportunity. I show up to work and I do the same thing. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I mean, I still love what I do. And I think the only way to get to any measure of success is by going deep, right? And getting better and better at what it is you've chosen to do in this life. And people that constantly switch and chase new opportunities, you talk to them in 10 years and they're probably still going to be broke.
They're still really excited about the new thing that's coming up.
Yeah. Which God bless them, right? It's a great way to live. You're always excited about the new thing, but most of them don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
and I think what's great, Daniil, about where you've been putting your effort is real estate is always a great place to put your effort, right? Because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a sellable asset. There's a consistent cash flow. So if you show up to work every day and you keep investing in real estate, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, when you're looking back, you're doing really well, right?
It's a great, it's a great wealth builder, and yeah. I don't really flip much. I'm building some houses every year. I probably build 6 to 10 houses that we sell, but most of my effort goes into building and growing a portfolio of properties that I get to keep, that cash flows every month, that provides financial security for me, and holding that real estate over time is one of the most powerful wealth building things you can do.
Yeah, I mean, all wealth is real estate, really. And if you look at what's happening in the market right now, so much money is flooding into real estate. Everyone's scared of the stock market. Everyone knows it's about to fall. So money is just piling into real estate because that's where real wealth is held. And actually, Danielle, I was just, I mentioned you on a previous podcast, not your name, but your story, because we interviewed a gentleman who talked about this house hack he had to where he was living at his house making money all throughout his whole, late teens, early 20s. And you had a similar house hack for a while. Didn't you live in one side of a duplex for free for a while?
It was actually in one unit out of a 4-unit building. And it was fantastic. I renovated this apartment building and I needed a place to live. And I just happened to move into one of those apartments, but I lived there for 4 years, and the other 3 apartments paid the entire mortgage, paid all real estate taxes, insurance, and I had $1,000 left over every single month. So I got paid to live there. It was beautiful. It was, it's a great thing. I didn't have to pay to live somewhere. I got paid.
Yeah.
To live somewhere. It's great.
Yeah.
I would recommend that to anybody.
Yeah, take a look at the Exactly How podcast. You can go ahead and see the previous episode where we break down exactly how to do those house hacks and live for free. I thought it was an awesome strategy. I did it as well.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I lived in a house and I had 2 garage apartments in the back. Rented those out, and I made $600 a month living at my house. You did the same thing, and it's
great. Keep your cost of living down. It gives you more flexibility. You don't have to work as hard, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that up until a certain point. When you start a family and you grow a family, you need more space. That becomes harder to do. But I definitely recommend that to anybody if you got that ability.
Yeah. Well, great. We're going to dive into small scale development here in a second. But for everyone who's new, what makes the Exactly How Financial Freedom podcast unique is every show comes with a detailed action plan. So we're going to pull all the knowledge out of Danielle's head here and put it on a step-by-step guide for you to be able to follow. All of the resources and free gifts that we mentioned can all be found at exactlyhow.com. And every single episode, we give away our flagship $3,000 software that allows you to find properties before they're listed on the MLS, before they go up for auction, those fantastic deals that you can rent and get cash flow or quick flip. If you're watching this live somewhere or during our YouTube premiere, visit exactlyhow.com. Right now, you might win this episode's free gift. So exactlyhow.com. All right, Danielle, cool. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. But for anyone who doesn't really know, for the average person who maybe isn't really in real estate, can you define what small scale real estate development is?
So, I mean, in my world, small scale real estate development, that can be building a single family house. What my business primarily revolves around is building rental properties. And what I typically build, what I have currently under construction or in my pipeline is I love building duplexes because duplexes are fairly easy to build and they cash flow great. Mm-hmm. And I'm building everything between duplexes, and right now I have up to 25 units in one project in the pipeline and everything in between. So to me, that's small scale, right? Probably as long as you're under 40, 50 units, I would still classify that as small scale.
But this isn't really about building a single house, or would you consider that small scale as well?
I mean, it's really, you can define it however you want, right? To me, small scale development is really what I focus on is 2 to 20 to 30 to 40 units.
Okay.
Right? And
some sort of a multifamily unit up to about 30, 40 units.
Yeah, they're projects that are easy enough to wrap your head around. They're easy enough to finance where I feel like you don't have to go out and raise a ton of money. And they're easy enough to execute. And especially duplexes that you can build by residential building code. If you've built or renovated a single family house, you can build a duplex. And so that's really kind of been my bread and butter for the last 4 or 5 years, is building and adding duplexes to my portfolio, because again, they cash flow great. I build them ground up, so they're maintenance free for a long time. They're energy efficient. We use really nice finishes, so they're very attractive to our tenants. We're able to lease them very quickly. And so bulk of my portfolio right now consists of 2 to 4 unit buildings because they're easy to do. They cash flow great. They don't compete with the large apartment complexes because living them is not really the same experience, right? It's a little bit more personal and feels more like you're living in a single family house. like I love that type of project, and it's not expensive to do in sort of gross dollar figures. So a lot of people can get into that.
That makes a lot of sense. On a duplex, roughly like how much do you target for cash flow if you're building ground up? Like what's a good deal for you? What's an okay deal for you?
On the duplex, I try to cash flow about $300 a unit. So, okay. But I don't just look at my gross cash flow. I look at cash and cash return. So I look at how much money do I have to leave in the deal, and then what kind of return is my cash flow generating on the money that I've tied up. So if let's say for simplicity's sake, I've tied up $60,000 in the project, right? Where I've had to leave it in the deal, and I'm cash flowing $6,000 a year. That's 10% cash and cash. You understand these metrics, but for those people that are kind of newer, that's 10% cash and cash return in that first year when I'm operating the property. So typically, if I'm hitting 10 to 12% cash and cash, I'm happy, because over time that's going to grow. So I think looking at your gross cash flow numbers is great, but you should also be looking at your cash and cash return, because that tells you how efficiently your money is working for you.
Oh, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And as far as figuring out some of these different formulas, is that kind of what your tech company is all about? Is that where you kind of figure all that out? Do you have cash on cash return? Do you have the calculators and stuff for people to plug in numbers and help them figure that out?
Yeah, it's one of the things Rehab Valuator does. I mean, it allows you to basically run the analysis on your deal from start to finish, right? From buying the land to doing the construction, to doing refinancing into permanent financing, doing your cash flow, cash and cash analysis. And it's got project management features in it as well that allow you to put your budgets together, scopes of work for your contractors, manage your bids, track your transactions in real time, track your actual versus budget. So, I mean, really, my software company came out from my need. I needed something for my business, and it's evolved along with my own sort of real estate evolution, right? So I needed, as I got more into construction, I needed project management tools, and I didn't see anything out there that really worked. So we added that to the software, and I'm using that in my own projects now, right? So you can use the tool basically from start to the end of your project.
And for everyone who's on the line right now, we'll make sure at exactlyhow.com, when you look at the show notes and the action plan, we'll have a link right into Rehab Valuator. This way you can download that for free. And you're giving that away for free today, right?
Yeah, and it's just to correct you, Ross, it's a cloud-based software, so you don't need to download anything. But there is a free version that people can access.
Great. Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that with everyone. And guys, listen, if you're listening to this on the podcast, remember, visit the Connected Investors YouTube channel. This way you can, we do extra things for our YouTube viewers and have some cool stuff for people who are actually watching us on YouTube. All right, Daniil, let's get into small scale real estate development. Before we jumped on the line here and hit record, we broke it down into kind of 3 steps: the pre-construction, the construction, and the post-construction. So take me through pre-construction.
So pre-construction is probably the hardest part, and that's where you're going to spend the most time. So to me, in the pre-construction phase, what falls into that? First of all, you've got to find the land, right? Do you want me to go into like different ways to find the land, or is that kind of
just a few tips on how to find good land would be awesome.
Sure. So I mean, so we source land from a number of sources. Direct mail, directly to the sellers, right? And that's something I know that your software can help people with. I buy quite a bit of lots from wholesalers. I actually love buying from wholesalers because they bring me the deal, tied up on the bow. I don't have to negotiate with the sellers. I don't have to send direct mail to the sellers. They bring me the deal. I go to the closing table. So I love buying from wholesalers. And if you're a wholesaler and you're not targeting vacant lots right now and vacant land, you should start, because there's a lot of builders like me that are looking for land. Occasionally you'll find something on MLS and LoopNet, but I wouldn't hold your breath, right? Very rarely. I did buy some land off of LoopNet a couple of years ago that turned out to be an unbelievable deal, but it was one of those situations where other people didn't really recognize the value. So occasionally, you'll find something, but you can't rely on market deals right now. Yeah. Referrals, tax auctions, I love buying at tax auctions. Lately, tax auctions have gotten a little crazy, so it's harder to buy deals, but I just picked up 2 lots from a tax auction a few months ago. Your county may have surplus sales where they're sitting on a bunch of vacant lots that they want to give away to builders, and maybe those vacant lots come with development agreements where you sign a piece of paper that says, I'm going to get this piece of land from you, Mr. Government, really cheap, but I promise to develop it within a year or 2 years or 3 years. That way you basically are guaranteed not to just be land banking it and profiting off of, without actually improving the neighborhood and improving the property. Yeah, we've split lots from existing houses before, right? And we've done tear downs before where you buy a house, but then you really get into it and you realize it's not worth renovating. So we're going to tear down the house and just, use it for land. So those are really the primary methods in which we've sourced land deals.
Let me ask you just a question there. And thank you for all of that information. There's some good value there. And opportunity zones, is that something that you're taking advantage of?
Yeah, I've got a project coming up in an opportunity zone. We've already got architectural plans in place for it. I'm probably going to break ground on that in the next 6 to 9 months. So opportunity zones are great. It's still being interpreted, right? The laws and how and exact rules are being interpreted. But I know there's a lot of buzz about opportunity zones. To me, I almost look at it like icing on the cake. If I happen to buy something in an opportunity zone, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not necessarily targeting, to take advantage of opportunity zone, you need to reinvest proceeds from some sale. You need to reinvest proceeds from selling something. I'm not really selling a whole lot of stuff right now. So I'm not that gung-ho about opportunity zones because I'd almost have to then take something to the market that I wasn't necessarily intending to sell just to take advantage of opportunity zones, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a great wealth building opportunity, especially if you're selling a bunch of assets. If you can reinvest in an opportunity zone, it's great.
Yeah, perfect. And actually, Danielle, I haven't told anyone this, but in the new version of our software, you can press a button and it shows you all the opportunity zones. So you can source just vacant land in opportunity zones and kind of target those. I think it's going to be a really, nice feature for people that are more advanced, like yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So pre-construction, we've talked about how to kind of source the deals. So let's just say you go to your local RIA, you're on Connected Investors. You're like, hey, I want land, bring it to me. The land, is the land typically a percent of the total build? If you're like, hey, I'm going to build a duplex, it's going to cost me $300,000. I shouldn't pay more than $80,000 for the land. Or is there any rule of thumb there on how much the land is to the development?
So yes, and you should absolutely create rules of thumb for yourself. And that's a great question. For me, I typically don't want to be paying for rentals, I don't want to be paying more than 20 grand per unit. Meaning if I can build a duplex on a lot, I typically don't like to be into it for more than $40,000. But again, that's in my market, that's based on my numbers, right? You need to have your own rules of thumb. Another good rule of thumb that I've heard a lot of people use is 20% of ARV, right? So if my duplex is worth $350,000, I don't want to be into it. What's 20% of that? 70 grand. For me, that would be kind of rich. Like I don't want to be into a lot for a duplex for $70,000. So that may be a rule that more applies to resale. If I'm flipping a house for $350, I could potentially pay 70 grand for it, but my margins would be pretty tight. So 15% of ARV, 10% of ARV, create your own rules of thumb because your metrics are going to be different in your market. I typically look at it as a gross figure per buildable unit. I don't want to be into the land for more than 20 grand a unit. And
Perfect.
that's served me pretty well.
Yeah. No, that's great though. Just that little tip, 10, 15, 20%. This way, if someone's throwing you a land deal and you're like, all right, I can build a triplex on it. You can quickly run some numbers in your head and you're like, that's around 20%. That's a little high. Let me dig in here. Let me negotiate. Cause you need to be able to quickly know if a deal's a deal.
And to add to that, Ross, because the next thing on my list in the pre-construction is understanding zoning. Because for you to know, very rarely will a wholesaler, not to talk crap about wholesalers, I love wholesalers, but very few wholesalers understand zoning and understand land values. So very rarely will somebody, especially a wholesaler, bring you a deal and tell you, you can build 4 units here. More often than not, they're going to bring you an address. You're going to need to go to your local county website, look up the size of the lot, look up the zoning designation. And you need to have understanding of zoning, because different zoning will have different rules that go along with it. Some zoning will only allow single family homes. No matter how, if a lot is under a certain size, you can't put more than a single family home there because that's what the neighborhood is zoned for. Other zoning is going to be very dense. And on the same size lot, where in another neighborhood with another zoning designation, you could build a single family home, that same size lot in a different zoning, you could potentially build 10 units on it. So understanding zoning is incredibly important, and very few people truly understand zoning. Your county will most likely have a zoning handbook, which we have that in Richmond City where I operate, and it lays out each zoning designation that says, okay, R5 zoning, right? R is residential, R5 zoning. In order to build a single family house, you need 6,000 square feet for your lot. The lot needs to be 60 feet wide. It needs to be your setback to your street needs to be X number of feet. Out of 6,000 square feet, your actual building can cover, let's say, 60% of the lot. Rules like that. And so you need access to that information. That's the only way that you're going to know. You're going to be able to look at a piece of land and say, I can build on it. You may not be able to build anything on that piece of land because it's too small given the zoning, and you can't even put a single family house on it.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get burned, right? It's a good way to buy something and then realize that it's a worthless piece of land unless it gets combined with a neighboring lot, for example.
Yeah. So there's really enough, the rule of thumb works as long as you know the zoning.
Exactly. Everything really, when it comes to land, everything starts with zoning. Now, the next step is zoning will tell you what you can build, quote unquote, by right, right? So by right means you can take it to permitting and build. You don't have to abide by what you can build by right because, again, rules differ and your avenues for rezoning are going to differ county by county. Mm-hmm. But you can get either the land potentially rezoned. In my market, we have what's called a special use permit. So in the last 12 months, I did that with a bunch of single family lots I owned. My opinion was that the market is going to correct, and I had a bunch of single family lots where I was going to build houses and sell them. Instead, I went and got special use permits approved for each one of those lots to build duplexes on that I'm now going to keep. You
just made the value a lot more, the value of that land.
Yes. It's a process that took 6 to 9 months. I had to pay a couple of grand in fees and there was some paperwork, but in the end, I got permission to put something on that piece of land that it originally was not zoned for. And then we also have zoning variances where, let's say the zoning dictates that I can build a house, but it can only be 16 foot wide. And I want to build an 18-foot wide house, right? I can go and get a zoning variance that just allows me to build wider on the lot. So there's a lot of different ways that you can deviate from what you can build by right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. A few podcasts ago, we had a gentleman on that does billboards. And he was going through a lot of the same type of conversation around zoning. Mm-hmm. So at Exactly How, you can listen to that podcast again about building billboards. He has a huge company. So no, zoning is everything. Is there anything else?
Was that the guy from Ohio?
What's that?
Was that the guy from Ohio?
No, he's from right here in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay. I'm thinking of a different person. Okay.
Yeah. So pre-construction, we talked a little bit about zoning. We know that this is the most toughest step in the 3. So in the pre-construction step, what are some other steps within the step?
So then you've got your financial analysis, right? Let's say you've got a piece of land in which you can build 2 units and you're getting it at the right price. So you're going to pay $20,000 per lot. That's your maximum. You're going to buy the piece of land for $40,000. The next step is you really need to do financial analysis all the way through to the end. Meaning, if I pay this much for land, what kind of building am I going to put into it, on it, right? What's it going to cost me to build? What's going to be my value once I've built? And then after I'm done building, I look at two things. What's my sweat equity going to be? Because what's the point of building something if you're into it for market value? Right? It's just like flipping houses, except for I'm going to hang on to this, but I want sweat equity. I want to get paid for my work and my time. So if it costs me all in, let's say to build the duplex, if it costs me $200,000, I like for it to be worth at least $250,000. That way I have 20% sweat equity, value that I've created through my work. It makes my balance sheet look better, right? It also allows me, if I want to, refi out and get all my money out, which is basically BRRRR, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with, but it's with building and not rehabbing. So I look at values, and my value is going to be determined. Well, in the duplex, you're actually going to go off comps because duplexes are a little weird. But if you're talking 4 units or more, it's going to be based on your income that your property will produce once it's stabilized. So I look at, am I going to have sweat equity in this project? How much sweat equity? And then I look at cash flow. How much what's my permanent financing going to look like? How much cash? Do I have to leave any cash in this deal permanently? Or can I maybe on my permanent financing fully refi out and get all my money back out? If I have to leave money out, if I have to leave money in the deal, how much money am I leaving in the deal? And then given my cash flow, what's my cash on cash return, as we discussed earlier? And if I have to leave cash in the deal, I want at least a 10% cash on cash return year one. So I do all that analysis before I ever engage with my architect, before I ever engage with any of the designers. And we can talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But I do the analysis on the deal start to finish before I ever launch it. I may do that before I even buy the land, right? If you're talking about bigger pieces of land, you should be doing that analysis before you ever pull the trigger on buying the land itself.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. We actually even did a podcast on how to develop skyscrapers.
Okay.
And this guy's in New York City. He's built tons of skyscrapers in New York City. And it was a lot of the same stuff. It's all the analysis in the front. Then once the construction phase comes, you're kind of almost done. You're just making sure the building doesn't fall over. His skyscraper almost fell over once. That's a story you can listen to on the podcast. But
wow.
But yeah.
No, but that's very accurate, right? Your pre-construction phase is actually the longest and the hardest. Because the next thing you're going to do, let's say you've bought the land, right? Now I go out to my architect to create architectural drawings. If I'm building by commercial building code, it's not just an architect that needs to work on this. Now I've got, well, so hold on, let me backtrack because we're not done, right? There's another whole due diligence phase before I ever close on the land, which is I'll typically get a soil report. I'll get a survey, right? The survey is going to tell me along with my title work whether there's any encroachments, any easements running through the land. I made that mistake once where I bought a piece of land and then turned out there was a huge easement on it that I couldn't get rid of. It really screwed me up. Best lessons we learn are lessons from our own mistakes, right? So before I ever close on a piece of land, I get a survey. I'll typically get a soil report where a soil engineer will go out and do core drillings on the property and sample the soil, because that's going to tell me whether there's a lot of fill. If there's a lot of fill on the site, we're going to have to scrape all of that off and haul, which is expensive. He's going to tell me whether there's an old basement on the property. Again, it's a mistake we made before where we didn't do enough soil samples on the lot, and when we started digging footers, the site caved in.
Great.
Because in the area where I do a lot of my development, there was old houses there with basements, and when they tear down the house, guess what they do with it? They collapse it into the basement, and then they just cover it with dirt. And so when they sampled my lot, they sampled it on the corners, but if they had sampled it in the center, they would have found that basement. And so what ended up happening was we still built, but we had to pour a ton of concrete into that hole to stabilize our foundations and footers. And so my costs went up tremendously. So we do thorough soil testing. Sometimes I'll get a zoning confirmation from the county where I actually get them to verify that the lot has a certain zoning and is buildable. So there's a bunch of other due diligence steps. Now, if it's a commercial piece of land, you also have a phase 1 study, potentially a phase 2 study. So it just depends on what kind of land you're buying.
So, I mean, soil samples will run you what, $1,000, $2,000 bucks?
For a small residential lot, my soil samples will run me $600 to $700. Survey will run me a couple of $100.
Yeah, and then phase one is a few thousand. Phase two is a few thousand.
I've never had to do phase two because you only do phase two if phase one reveals something where you need to do a phase two. I've never had to do phase two yet. Phase one will typically cost a few grand.
Gotcha. Yeah, I bought a commercial property and I never realized how poisonous dry cleaners were. There used to be a dry cleaner on this lot, and they would back in the day, they would just pour chemicals into the ground, and it caused a lot of issues. So we had to go through a lot of those costs to get the go ahead that it was good.
Yeah.
So Daniil,
old
man,
gas stations, yeah, absolutely.
This has been, very thorough, and this is why you guys listen to Exactly How, because this is exactly how someone who does this goes through this, no BS, kind of step by step, his thinking, his rules of thumb, what he likes to see for cash on cash returns, some of the mistakes he's made. It's really important stuff. Are you ready to jump into the construction phase, or is there anything else in pre-construction you want to touch on?
No, there's more in pre-construction. I can run through it quickly. So
Yeah.
so once that's done, right, and you've done your financial analysis, you're ready to pull the trigger and buying the land. I'll go out to my architect to create architectural drawings. If it's a commercial project, then I also have to get structural engineers involved, civil engineers, storm, because we have to do stormwater retention. We have to have engineered mechanical, electrical, and plumbing drawings. And then we go to permitting. So if you're building by residential, it's pretty easy. You've got a set of plans, submit it, go build. If it's a commercial project, there's a lot more people you're paying now before you can even go to permitting. So, but once all that's done, we have sprinkler drawings. On some of these buildings, we have fire protection drawings. It gets complicated once you're building by commercial building code. The learning curve goes up tremendously, and I'm still learning. When I go from 20 units to 100 units, which I have a 100+ unit project in the pipeline.
Good job.
My learning curve, it's like this. So there are people that deal in that world that know far more than I do, but that's what's fascinating about this business, is because I've been doing it for 10 years and I still wake up sometimes and I go, like, what's happening? Like, I have so much to learn. I have so much more to figure out. And that to me, that's awesome. Like, I never feel like I'm even close to knowing it all. And building methods change. And if you go from one geographical area to another, the way they're building is completely different than how you're building. And so all that stuff is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, that's it's really encouraging, I think, for a lot of our listeners to hear someone with your experience to still say, hey, I wake up sometimes and I'm like, what do I do? Right? Because people think once they hit a certain level, they're good. But the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. So it's like,
and just like, I could listen to a guy that built skyscrapers and I'll be in awe of him. Right. So,
and he's like, they're only 50 or 60 stories. I haven't done a 200-story skyscraper yet.
Right.
And it's crazy. You mentioned just sprinklers, right? Just for you, those of you that are watching on YouTube, in our office right here, Connecting Investors, right around that corner, we have a stage that we built because we're going to start letting people come here and kind of learn in person. And we had to do all this crazy sprinkler stuff to build a stage, and the amount of permitting that we had to go through. It's in the historical side of downtown Wilmington. So they are extra, stringent on the different rules. So if you're developing in certain historical areas, you might have a whole different set of rules to know about. So before we jump into the next stage, which is construction, I have to announce the winner of our Pre-MLS software. You're going to get full access to $3,000 software that allows you to find all of the investment properties that you're looking for. And you can see every flip and landlord in your town as well. Plus, we give you fantastic access to private capital. And the winner of this week's drawing is Jackie Federico. Jackie, congratulations.
Nice. Congrats, Jackie. I was hoping it'd be me, but that's all right.
No, I'm gonna set you up with a special pre-MLS notification to where when there's lots in your area that pop up,
I like that.
I'll just have it start hitting your inbox.
I could use that.
Yeah, exactly. You can forward it over to your real estate agent, and they can go do all the hard work for you, so you don't have to do anything.
I like it.
Yeah, Jackie, we're going to get you all set up. So thank you so much for listening, for commenting, for being a very valued part of Connected Investors. And your engagement, everyone, is really what drives us to keep doing this. If you're not liking this, sharing this, asking questions, then, there's no reason for us to be here. We got a lot of other things to do, like develop real estate. So congratulations, Jackie. Let's jump into step number 2, construction. So great. You got everything done. Now it's time to build.
Almost. We're still not there because you
Oh, gosh.
need financing, right? You need to go to permitting, but you also need to line up your construction financing, assuming that your financing wasn't there in place when you're buying the land. So, I mean, for me, what I do, especially with some of these smaller projects, is I'll buy the land. I'll buy it with cash because, I'm fortunate enough to where I'm now in a position where I have some spare cash that I can just buy land with. It wasn't always this way. And then I will line up construction financing. And oftentimes the construction financing that I line up automatically rolls over into permanent financing when the project is done and stabilized. But that's the last step in the pre-construction is you've got to line up your construction financing so that when your building permit is approved, you're ready to break ground.
Is that a traditional bank or are those private and hard money lenders?
No, I use local community banks. And oftentimes I get almost 100% of my construction finance because I'm bringing the land as equity to the table. And I'm able to show, again, shameless plug for Rehab Valuator, but we use financing proposals inside Rehab Valuator to show our bankers that, hey, this is what my project requires in financing. This is going to be its stabilized value once it's built, right? So the loan I'm asking for, even though it's for 100% construction, it's actually only 70% of its post-construction value. And this is how much equity I'm bringing to the table. And then, hey, Mr. Banker, based on my rental projections, the debt coverage ratio of the permanent loan that you're going to end up giving me is like 1.4, 1.5. So for those people that understand these metrics, it's a pretty good debt coverage ratio. So I'm able to show all of this stuff to my banker. So oftentimes, so for example, I'm getting ready to break ground in a 14-unit building. My construction loan is for $1.3 million, which is like 97% of my budget, right? So 97% of my construction is being financed by the bank. I bought the land I got a very good deal on land a couple of years ago. So, I'm going to end up bringing some cash to the table, but not much. And so what happens with the way we structure financing is that financing is interest only during the construction phase. We start leasing the properties out before we're even done with construction. Once the certificate of occupancy is obtained, we move tenants in, and then that loan, once the building is quote unquote stabilized, automatically rolls over into a permanent loan. So I don't have to do an actual refi. Now I could, right? So with this 14-unit building, for example, I'm probably going to go out and refi it into non-recourse Fannie Mae financing. But with some of these smaller deals we're building, I don't have that option. So I just keep it with a local bank. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. But I'm going to ask you to define just a few things you said there.
Yeah.
You said debt coverage ratio. Can you just kind of break that down?
Yeah. So in simplest terms, debt coverage ratio is my net operating income for my building divided by my debt service. So let's say that after subtracting out real estate taxes, insurance, maintenance, all my other costs, my building generates $1,000 a month in net operating income. And my mortgage payment is going to be $1,000. So that's a 1 debt coverage ratio. So what that tells the bank is that if I have to drop my rents even a little bit, or if I have vacancy, I'm not generating enough money to even cover the debt. Right. So most of the time, banks will want to see at least a 1.2, 1.3 debt coverage ratio. That just means I'm bringing in 1.2 times what I have to pay out to the bank. And I have some cushion. Right. So the higher the debt coverage ratio, the better. So what we typically show the bank before we can even secure a construction loan is that when the building is stabilized and we roll over into permanent financing, the debt coverage ratio is going to be very strong. And then it's great if you can even deliver better results than that. So typically I try to be conservative in my projections. And over the last couple of years, we've consistently hit higher rents than what we've projected in our performance. And so that's always nice.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You also said the word non-recourse debt. Can you explain to everyone what that means?
Right. So non-recourse debt just means you're not on the hook personally for it. So with local community banks, these smaller loans, you have to personally guarantee it. So if I default on that loan, they can come after my other assets, my other properties. Non-recourse debt, which is really only common when it comes to bigger properties. That just means that the property secures the loan, and none of your other assets, none of your personal assets, none of your other properties are on the hook for it, right? So
sounds great.
So the lender can take back that property, but that's all they get.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to do something here that some people are probably going to get mad at me at. We're running up against our time. So I think all you're getting for this episode of Exactly How is the pre-construction side of small scale development. Maybe we'll have Daniil back on.
So I can cover the rest actually in 30 seconds.
30 seconds? Perfect. That's about all we got.
Construction is easy. Either GC it yourself or get a great general contractor. Once your pre-construction phase is done, construction is actually pretty simple, right? It's actually easier than rehabbing. You follow the plans, follow the drawings. And then during construction, we pre-lease the property. And post-construction really just means finishing, putting tenants into the property, and then rolling over into your permanent financing. Or actually doing an active refinancing into a different loan. Done.
Yeah, done. There you go. Good. But I mean, I'm telling you, Daniil, that you were very thorough in the most important parts of this. And I really appreciate you really you're breaking that down as much as you did.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. What do you think your life would be like if you never found real estate?
I'm sure I'd be running some sort of other business. I was never really that good at working a job. Right? I have always had a terrible attitude. not very employable. So I probably would be doing something else. You know,
so as a grocery stock boy, you weren't very happy when you showed up to work?
No, I slacked off a lot.
Credit card call center jockey?
I did it all, man. I mean, I worked, I waited tables. I was fired from at least two different restaurants in college. I worked every type of job you can imagine from high school through college. And then, I ended up on Wall Street, and I'm glad I left or got kicked out. I'm certainly sometimes what seems like a bad situation turns out to be the best thing that can happen to you, right? You get the kick in the butt that you need.
Yeah.
So,
well, are you ready for the rapid fire section of this podcast and YouTube show? I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Yeah. And just the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how strict were your parents?
Probably 7. They weren't that bad, but I had a sort of a fairly solid upbringing.
Get up early or stay up late?
I try to wake up at 5, but I hit the snooze and I'm up by like 5:20 to 5:25 every morning.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
7 during the week, 8 on the weekends.
Favorite or most recent book that you read?
Oh man, I just finished a book called Game Changers by Dave Asprey. He's the guy behind Bulletproof Coffee. And okay. I'm like on a big Bulletproof Coffee kick lately. But that's a book that he wrote where he took notes from everybody that he interviewed on his podcasts, all the top performers in their fields. I mean, world-class people. And he sort of summarized the best tips that have made those people successful. And so that book has a ton of great gold nuggets just about improving your energy levels and your fitness and your nutrition. And all of that is vital to us performing as entrepreneurs. So I recommend that book highly.
We'll make sure to have it on your page at Exactly How for everyone to be able to click and buy. If you can be any superhero, who would it be?
Batman, because he was just super rich and had cool toys, I guess. Yeah.
Something everyone should do less of.
Complain, spend time on social media, chase shiny objects. I would say watch TV, but I like TV. I have a couple of shows I like to watch. I mean, it's a good way to unwind. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say don't watch TV. So there's some really good shows out there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
What's something everyone should do more of?
Read, self-improve. I don't care how old you are. If you're not learning something new, if you're not trying to get better, I'm recording this from my home office, and my floor and my coffee table is littered with books that I keep ordering on Amazon that I haven't gotten to yet, but they can't go on the bookshelves until they're read. But I have this backlog of like 40, 50 books that I need to read this year. And that's something I only started doing after I became self-employed. When I was working a job, I was comfortable, I was content. I didn't really understand the importance of learning. And so that's something I've gotten a lot better at.
Yeah, absolutely. Will people visit Mars in your lifetime?
Well, if Elon Musk gets his shit together, yeah.
Bitcoin, bang or bust?
I'm staying out of crypto. I think blockchain will definitely be a game changer long-term in some shape or form, but most of the cryptocurrency world right now is a clown show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Daniil, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on the line with us. And hey guys, everyone, at exactlyhow.com, all the notes will be there. He went over a lot of detailed information, so you're going to keep our copywriters very busy. Some breaking that down into something that's easy for you guys to read and implement on. So thanks again for showing up.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And for everyone who's still here with us, congratulations, you made it to the end of the show. Only 30% of people finish any podcast or any YouTube show. So that means you found a lot of value here. Please like it, give us a thumbs up, share it, tag someone you know, at least give us a little comment. Let us know what you liked. It really fuels us. I know you're listening to this thinking, oh, someone else will do it. No, you do it. Go ahead and comment. Let us know that you like what we're doing here. Because if you don't, no one does it, right? We get a lot of fantastic comments in all the videos. And the more comments we get, the more energized we get to keep bringing more and more good people here. So you made it to the end, which means you enjoyed what we did for you. So thank you so very much for interacting with us. And I'll see you on the next show.
The Connected Investors app connects you with investors, notifies you of available properties, helps locate cash buyers, and secure private funding to close deals. Set up in seconds to become a member of the Connected Investors social network. Now you can scroll through your main feed to find cash buyers, see investment properties not available to the general public, and network with investors by adding your own comments to a thread to keep the conversation going. The Control Center is your connection to add properties to sell, start new discussions, connect with local investors, and even find private funding. The Notifications tab will keep you alerted to new investment properties and offers. You'll also find new friend requests to connect directly with the community to build your network. From the property marketplace, you'll be able to find, favorite, and make offers on investment properties. Download Connected Investors today to find, figure, fund, and flip investment properties on the go.